A very good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Beetv Global News at 12. I am Ruth Ogbodu and now the news in detail. Former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores have been held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, under highly restrictive conditions after their capture in Caracas and transfer to the United States. The report
accuses them of leading a facilitating drug trafficking networks that allegedly moved cocaine into the United States and of involvement with violent groups including Mexican and Colombian cartels. The charges carry potential decades to life prison sentences if convictions are secured. The legality of the U.S. operation to capture Maduro prompted debate at the United Nations, where some nations, including China and Russia, criticized the actions as violating international law and national sovereignty. In Venezuela, Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has been installed as interim president, denouncing Maduro's removal as illegitimate and demanding his release. The U.S. government, however, contends Maduro will face U.S. justice under established federal statutes. Maduro's legal team is expected to challenge aspects of his detention and argue sovereign immunity, although U.S. courts have historically been reluctant to recognize such defenses for deposed foreign leaders. A future hearing is scheduled for March 17, 2026, as the case moves slowly towards a potential trial. Temitope Oluwafemi reporting for Beetv News.
Venezuelan lawmaker George Rodriguez was sworn in as president of the National Assembly as the country's legislature convened for a new term, pledging to uphold the nation's constitution and existing laws and ongoing political tensions. The report.
Rodriguez, a close ally of President Nicolas Maduro, took the oath of office during a formal session of the Assembly, promising to defend national sovereignty and ensure the continuity of legislative work. In his remarks, he emphasized loyalty to Venezuela's constitutional framework and called on lawmakers to work towards political stability. The swearing-in ceremony was attended by senior government officials and members of the ruling party, reflecting the continued dominance of pro-government forces within the legislature. The National Assembly remains a key institution in Venezuela's governance, often at the center of disputes between the government and opposition groups. During the session, Nicolas Maduro Guerra, the son of President Maduro and a lawmaker himself, publicly voiced support for Delcy Rodriguez, whom he referred to as the country's interim president. He also called for the return of his parents, a statement that underscored the tense political atmosphere surrounding Venezuela's leadership and governance. Maduro Guerra's comments came amid heightened uncertainty over Venezuela's political direction, as rival claims to leadership and international pressure continue to shape the country's internal dynamics. His remarks were met with applause from pro-government legislators, while opposition voices remain largely absent from the proceedings. The new legislative term begins at a time when Venezuela faces deep economic challenges, diplomatic isolation, and ongoing debates over legitimacy and constitutional authority. Analysts say the appointment of George Rodriguez signals continuity in the government's approach to governance and its firm control over the legislative branch. As the National Assembly moves forward with its new leadership, attention remains focused on how the body will address national issues and navigate the country's prolonged political crisis. Evelyn Isibili reporting for Beetv.
After 5 years in Colombia, 57-year-old Venezuelan Nalet Arcelis Useche is preparing for return to Venezuela following the dramatic U.S. capture of President Nicolas Maduro, a decision that reflects both hope and uncertainty among Venezuelan migrants abroad. The report.
Who fled Venezuela in 2021 to escape gender-based violence and economic hardship, has been living in Colombia working as a domestic helper and coordinating a support group of some 30 Venezuelan women assisting fellow migrants with necessities and guidance. She said the news of Maduro's capture prompted her to seriously consider repatriation after years of building a life in exile. There are mixed feelings because you have been here for some time, but sooner or later we have to return to improve and make a better country, she told reporters. Since 2014, almost 8 million Venezuelans, roughly 20% of the population, have left the country due to dire economic conditions, insecurity, and lack of basic services, according to the UN International Organization for Migration. Many have settled in neighboring Colombia, which holds the largest share of the Venezuelan diaspora. On January 3, 2026, the United States launched a major military operation against Venezuela, codenamed Operation Absolute Resolve, involving airstrikes and a special forces assault that resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, in Caracas. Maduro and Flores were subsequently transported to the United States, where they were brought into federal custody to face a superseding indictment that includes narco-terrorism, cocaine importation conspiracy, and weapon charges. Both defendants have pleaded not guilty in a Manhattan federal court and remain detained pending further hearing, with the next scheduled for March 17, 2026. The U.S. administration, led by President Donald Trump, described the operation as part of efforts to combat narcotics trafficking and promised that Washington would oversee a transitional period for Venezuela. Trump publicly stated the U.S. would run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper and judicious transition, a remark interpreted by some as implying deeper involvement in Venezuelan governance. Maduro has denounced his capture as a kidnapping, insisted he remains Venezuelan's legitimate president, and called the U.S. action illegal. His defense team has argued that his arrest violates international law and presidential immunity. The operation drew sharp international criticism. At an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting, Secretary General Antonio Guterres and several member states condemned the U.S. action as a violation of Venezuelan sovereignty and international law. Venezuela ambassador to the UN labeled the attack as illegal armed aggression. Allies of Maduro, including Russia and China, demanded his release, while other nations expressed concern about the precedent set by such an intervention. Within Venezuela, Maduro's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was sworn in as interim president and denounced the U.S. operation. At the same time, reports indicate a heightened state of repression in parts of the country, with security forces cracking down on dissent and independent media. For Venezuelan migrants like Useche and her family, the unfolding political landscape has reignited hopes for eventual return. Some see Maduro's removal as an opening for possible democratic change and stability, while others remain cautious, aware that the country's future remains uncertain and security conditions unresolved. Useche said her decision to return is driven by a desire to help rebuild her homeland, even as she acknowledges fear about safety and the unknown condition she will face on arrival. Evelyn is reporting for Beetv News.
Thick plumes of smoke rose into the night sky over the southern Lebanese town of Anna late on Tuesday following an Israeli airstrike, as tensions along the Israel-Lebanon border continue to escalate. Israel military sources said the strike targeted alleged positions linked to the Hezbollah and Hamas, accusing the groups of using southern Lebanon as a base for cross-border operations against Israel. The report. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries sharply criticized President Donald Trump's military operation in Venezuela, calling it an unauthorized military action that bypassed Congress and risks drawing the United States into another foreign conflict. The report.
Speaking on Monday, said Trump's decision to use force in Venezuela, including strikes and the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, lacked legal authority from Congress and went beyond what the White House has described as law enforcement. Most recently connected to the unauthorized military action in Venezuela, he said, adding that Democrats would continue to focus on domestic issues such as lowering the cost of living and fixing health care while the administration is off starting wars. The minority leader dismissed the administration's characterization of the operation as a law enforcement effort, calling that claim a lie to the American people. He described the mission as an unprecedented military action, underscoring his argument that the U.S. had crossed a constitutional line by engaging in sustained kinetic operations without congressional approval. Jeffries also stressed that the future of Venezuela should be determined by Venezuelans themselves, not by U.S. political advisors or Trump administration officials. While acknowledging Maduro's status as a widely condemned authoritarian leader, he argued that external military intervention without explicit legislative backing undermines democratic norms at home and abroad. His comments reflect broader democratic concerns about legality and strategic clarity of the U.S. action in Venezuela, which has drawn reactions from both domestic lawmakers and international figures questioning whether Trump exceeded his executive authority and exposed U.S. troops to open-ended commitments. Zainab Mohammed reporting for Beetv News.
Wall Street major indices closely sharply higher Monday, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average reaching an all-time peak as surging financial and energy shares drove broad market gains following a dramatic geopolitical event over the weekend. The report.
Investors reacted positively to news that U.S. forces conducted a military strike in Venezuela that resulted in the capture of President Nicolas Maduro, fueling optimism about future access to the country's vast oil reserves and economic opportunities for U.S. firms. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed about 1.2%, adding roughly 595 points to close at 48,977.18, marking a record closing high for the blue chip index. The Dow also set an intraday record above 49,000 points earlier in the session as traders seized on the upbeat risk sentiment. The S&P 500 rose 0.6% to 6,902.05 and the Nasdaq Composites gained 0.7% to 23,395.82. Energy stocks were among the standout performers, with the S&P 500 Energy Index rising to its highest level since March 2025, as oil majors and service firms rallied on expectation of expanding business prospects in Venezuela. Chevron surged more than 5%. Exxon Mobil climbed over 2%, and other companies such as Halliburton and SLB posted solid gains. Investors are betting U.S. firms will play a significant role in restoring Venezuela oil production infrastructure if political stability permits. Market strategists noted that energy stock benefited from expectation that U.S. policymakers will encourage American oil companies to invest in Venezuela oil sector over, even as the current U.S. embargo on Venezuelan crude remain in place. The optimism was further supported by comments from senior strategists who said the lack of indication of a prolonged conflict helped maintain risk appetite among equity investors. Financial shares played a key role in the rally, with major banks such as Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan Chase posting strong gains that helped lift the Dow. The S&P 500 Financial Index jumped more than 2% as investors looked ahead to earnings prospects and a potential favorable economic backdrop. Defense and aerospace stock also advanced, with companies like Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics contributing to gains in the broader market's defense segment. Technology stock mostly stabilized after also recent volatility, with Tesla rising around 3% following a string of losses, while other tech names posted mixed results. Consumer discretionary shares also saw notable gains, adding breadth to the market's upward move. Investors have expressed optimism that the geopolitical development will ultimately benefit sectors tied to energy and infrastructure, even amid uncertainties about the timeline for reopening Venezuela oil operations and broader geopolitical risks. Market participants are also focused on upcoming U.S. economic data, including non-farm payroll figures, which could influence Federal Reserve policy later this month. Favor Kolawole reporting for Beetv News.
And now to the entertainment news. Award-winning singer Tiwa Savage has clapped back at a social media user who suggested that her son appeared uncomfortable after she briefly shook her backside in public. And also streamer Pella blows hot as he lashes at a lady who allegedly called him an illiterate and told him he was constituting nuisance. The report.
The reaction followed a video that captured Tiwa Savage standing outside her show with her son, Jamil, during which she gave a brief playful shake. In the clip, Jamil was seen looking up at her, a moment that drew mixed reactions online. A user identified as the Dami Foreign reshared the video and commented, "Omo, why is Tiwa Savage's son frowning?" A remark that quickly gained attention. Responding to the post, Tiwa Savage dismissed the criticism and accused the commenter of clout chasing. She wrote, "The obsession with me is loud, but your relevance is missing." In another development, famous Nigerian Afrobeat singer Davido Adeleke has taken to social media to open up about his wife Chioma's long-standing habits. The singer shared a playful moment from their vacation on Canaan Island, and the post has since gone viral online. In a video posted on his Instagram story, Davido was seen holding a plate of food while Chioma approached with her own. Instead of eating her meal, she cheekily took a spoonful from his plate. Davido looked amused, took to social media to lament about his wife's constant habits. Streamer Pella blows hot as he lashes out at a lady who allegedly called him illiterate and told him he was constituting nuisance. The TikToker shared this in a video he made while still at the restaurant. According to Pella, the confrontation occurred while he was at the food spot having a conversation. He claimed the unidentified lady complained that he was being noisy and went further to label him as an illiterate. The remark reportedly angered Pella, who responded by questioning the value of formal education when it does not translate to visible success or stability. The influencer expressed surprise at encountering what he described as open hatred in real life, noting that the situation escalated unexpectedly from a simple visit to buy food. He emphasized that the insult was unprovoked and deeply disrespectful. And that's it on the entertainment news. Evelyn Isabella reporting for Beetv News.
Guys, you see this Olori Buruku? I enter Komoti, I enter Folies at the top. This way they say, me I did not.
And that is all on our 12 p.m. Global News. Thank you for joining and stay tuned for our 3 p.m. news updates. I am Ruth Ogbodu. Goodbye for now.
Audio